Good morning. Good morning, everyone. Let's get to talking shop now. When it comes to luxe, you cannot have a conversation about luxury without talking about heritage. And when it comes to shopping and retail, reinvention is always part of that conversation. And the man sitting next to me today has been navigating both for the last year. Michael Chalhoub is the third generation to lead Chalhoub Group, a 70-year-old family business that started as a single silver shop in Damascus and is now the Middle East's dominant luxury player. Michael, you're 1 year now, exactly 1 year into the CEO role, and the company has had a very good one. You've grown 8% while global luxury is contracting. You announced the group's first American store. You're building and investing in brands while still partnering and growing some of the most iconic, Louis Vuitton, Dior, Sephora, Louboutin, just to name a few. When you look back at these last 12 months, against this backdrop of headwinds for luxury, what surprised you and what challenged you the most?
Thank you, Ritu, and good morning, everyone. Thank you for having me here. Well, listen, firstly, I've been very lucky because the foundations on which I've managed to build that first year of my tenure were extremely solid. And we've benefited from solid momentum. Momentum from what our activity has been about, but also momentum from a context, a local context that has been quite solid for luxury retail, fashion, and beauty. And so for us, it's been a very good year, as you underlined, but a year where I've been actively listening, observing, and seeing things in a bit of a different landscape, in a bit of a different oversight. And it's been fascinating. What I've seen is a solid team operating in a favorable context, as I said. And we have a fantastic team of subject matter experts that are doing fantastic things across the board. And I've managed through my tenure to be able to travel, to spend some time in stores, to spend some time in warehouses, and that's been fascinating.
Yeah.
But I've also seen a very complex organization that has been, navigating a complex world as well. And, not to speak about everything, but, the geopolitical context has been tricky. The global context in which luxury has now been operated has been challenging, even though obviously we were protected in our bubble of the Middle East, and quite nicely so. And obviously there's profound transformation in our field, in the consumer demands and the consumer expectations, in technological transformation. And so we've had to navigate those complexities that have been sort of adding to each other. And we've managed to do that pretty well. So we've continued doing what we do best, build the fantastic brands that you were naming, and that we have the beautiful opportunity to follow and push and actively operate in the region.
Yeah.
We've been managing to continuing to expand across the region and outside of the region, as you were properly underlining. We've now announced plans to expand in the US, and we've started with our US e-com operation.
Yeah.
We have a nice business in Latin America that's growing quite nicely.
Yeah.
And then we've managed to launch a few initiatives.
Yeah.
So we've launched Layla, which is an AI beauty coach for our faces.com website. We've launched a few sustainability initiatives, which we're very proud of. So all of that has managed to add up into what I think was a beautiful year and a solid year for us.
You mentioned some of the complexities, and you've navigated that so well. But of those complexities from geopolitical and the global context, were there any one? I know they kind of compound and can make it difficult for many of the retailers here in the room. Were there any that you saw that kind of compounded the fastest, and how did you stay sort of focused as you were in that context of the different situations happening around the world?
the reality is that some of them you don't anticipate, and some of them escalate fast. So obviously in June, when we started receiving phone calls from some of our team members based in Qatar and based in Bahrain, saying that they were seeing missiles above their heads, everything was very scary, very fast. And we had to find solutions with our risk committee, for them to be protected, and for our customers and our sales consultants to be in a safe zone. And so obviously we didn't know that this was going to last, thankfully, only half a night, and that this was probably more calculated than we could have imagined. But that brought with it its amount of fears and complexities. And obviously your human capital is your priority. And so for us to be able to manage that human capital as well as possible was our real priority. So that night, we got on the phone with the risk committee at 10 p.m., at 12 a.m., at 2 a.m., just to make sure that everybody was safe and sound, and that no disruption was on the horizon. And obviously, seeing it from afar, because we were in Dubai and we were seeing things that were happening in Bahrain and Qatar, was a little bit a nervous moment. But apart from that, we try to be very systematic about our approach, right? And our approach is all about building brands. And we try to build brands as well as we can, with a line of conduct, with values, with the right ethics and the right integrity. And generally, we manage not to go too far beyond, what our role is.
You mentioned the geopolitical complexities kind of as one of the kind of main ones that stood out in this year. And even now, as we were all coming to attend the conference, there's always situations in the area and some flights being canceled through different airspace that you couldn't fly through. Your family has navigated geopolitical complexities in the region for 70 years. I think the family moved 4 times. It was Syria, Lebanon, Kuwait, and then finally Dubai. What has that taught you of, over the years of knowing that and understanding that? And what are some of the key lessons that has stayed with you as you now navigate what's happening now?
Yeah, I mean, there's a ton of lessons that were brought from the history of the family and the family business. One is that, change is the only status quo, right? And we know that, we're building a fantastic business over time, but we can't take any of this for granted. The reality is that, any time now, something can happen and put everything at risk. Secondly is that, the resilience that we can have is really this resilience of our people. So we need to take care of our people as much as possible, because their resilience is what's going to make us stronger, and resilience is what's needed today to navigate those complexities. And thirdly and lastly, but not the least, is really about how much you manage to push the boundaries and push yourselves to restart and relaunch businesses once they're at zero, because that's what our family business has done. When it left Syria, it had to start from scratch. When it left Lebanon, it had to start from scratch. When we left Kuwait, we had to start from scratch. And so this element of being able to go back to square one and relaunch a business is so ingrained in our mentality and our values that we try to instill it into everyone around us.
Yeah, that's the perfect segue actually into how you're sort of relaunching or maybe taking things in a slightly different direction. The family, of course, is so well known, the Chalhoub Group, for the franchise partnerships that you've had in the region with some of the world's greatest luxury houses. But you have been very clear, and I've gotten the opportunity to interview you several times, that the future will look a bit different and that you have to compete with yourself, is a quote I've heard from you. How do you balance being a trusted partner to brands and simultaneously build your own retail concepts?
Yeah, that's a really interesting question. And the idea is to say, let's disrupt ourselves before we get disrupted, right? And so it is true that in a few years' time, some of the partnerships that we have with brands, will perhaps no longer be. And so for us, it's really, really important to be able to rethink our business model. Obviously, centrally, we have to be able to build brands, and to build the fantastic brands that we have around us is so central to our strategy. But at the same time, it's so important for us to really rethink what we're about, the services that we can offer, first and foremost to our customer, but also to the brands that we support. And so for us, it's really about that. And it's about figuring out what is the job to be done by the products that we operate, figuring out how to stay strategically relevant to a local context, to global sourcing, to all the logistics complexities that we have to operate in. And then it's about figuring out what is our competitive advantage and how do we push that competitive advantage and continue investing into making sure that that competitive advantage grows through time.
Yeah.
And so all of that is really about creating a real experience, whether in our stores or whether with our products, creating an experience for the customer that we have, for the consumer that we have, that will have this tremendous value and that will warrant, the price to be paid for, an object or a product that is unbelievable. Whether that product is a product that we source from Europe, a product that we have, with some of our partner brands, or a product that we source locally and that we push globally.
Yeah. One of the competitive advantages, as you mentioned, understanding your competitive advantages and looking at the company from the outside, one seems to be that you've really successfully built brands across categories. So whether it's as a partner or whether they're your own brands, the group owns Christophe, which is a 200-year-old French silverware house. You've expanded Faces Beauty, your own concept, into Latin America. And Level, of course, is the epitome of luxury footwear. These are completely different businesses with different economics. And is there a through line in which you approach brand building across such diverse categories? Because you seem to do that very successfully. I think Sephora in the Middle East is the most productive, in the world, is what I hear.
Yes,
so you're doing well.
The Dubai Mall store is right now the #1 store worldwide. So we're extremely proud about statistics that we have like these ones. And obviously, I think you're right. I think we have a duty of care towards our customer, whether it's a beauty customer, whether it's a retail customer, whether it's a fashion customer, whether it's a jewelry customer. And the reality is that oftentimes that customer is the same customer through the journey. And so for us, it's about building her experience as well as we can and making sure that we are locally relevant, that we're globally scalable, and that we're operating in ways that really align with the values that we have and the values both of the brand and of our group locally. And so for us, it's really about figuring out how that experience is, managed at the best level possible, how to make sure that the customer journey is flawless, how to make sure that the customer experience, whether online or offline, is seamless throughout. And I think that we've done this well throughout the categories that we operate in. And it's true that there are some common threads between silverware, between jewelry, between beauty, between fashion, but there are some differences, and to be able to manage those complexities is really important.
When you have, for instance, a brand like Christophe, a 200-year-old silverware brand, what's the job to be done there, which might be a little bit different than, I know you guys also just launched a partnership for Korean skincare, for instance, which seems to, is obviously a big trend that's really already well entrenched in Western markets. How do you navigate that? Two very different mindsets and businesses. One is very sort of trend aligned, and you're a very large group. So, is the agility to jump onto Korean skincare, or is it harder to move quickly on those? And how do you navigate that from also honoring the heritage of a brand like Christophe?
Well, it all starts with the consumer, right? And for us, the consumer, whether in one place or in the other, needs to be elevated and educated in the right sense. And so for us, when we started with silverware about 70 years ago, like you correctly mentioned, we were very much trying to educate our customers towards, eating with proper silverware, proper, instruments that are luxury instruments. And today, that's the job that we're trying to do with a beauty customer that's super aware of the trends worldwide, but sometimes doesn't fully know what the differentiators are for Korean beauty and some of the Korean products and the Korean brands. And so for us, it's really a duty a duty of care towards our customer that is really invaluable and that is really important today. And so that duty is elevated to our number one priority today. Yeah. And we try to do our best to educate the customer towards being able to be more aware of all of these different functionalities that we have to bring. Now, obviously, there are differences. And what we do with Christophe, which is produce and manufacture objects from scratch, is very different than the partnership that we have with a Korean association that helps us supply brands that are trendy brands in Korea, but perhaps not yet entering the trends in the UAE or in the Middle East. But ultimately, for us, it's about the customer. It's about helping the customer understand and helping the customer, be at their best and helping them, find what suits them best.
Yeah. You know the customer very, very well in the Middle East. I mean, I think there's no doubt that if there is one retail group that understands the Middle East and the customer and the mindset, it's Chalhoub Group.
Well, we've invested a lot into knowing that customer, and that's a lot what our partners are about. The first question that they ask us is, who's your customer and how do we adapt to them? And so we've invested a lot into our customer intelligence team that is now, quite a sizable team within our group.
And in fact, you house some of the most important data when it comes to consumer intelligence, which we often go to. But now you're also pivoting to understanding a different customer, and I want to talk about your US play a little bit. Level Shoes is the world's largest luxury footwear destination and arguably the most ambitious retail project to come out of the Middle East 15 years ago and has been highly successful. And you announced this year that you'll be opening the Miami store in Bal Harbour in 2027, next year. At a time when bricks and mortar in American malls are struggling, you guys are going in a big way. What gives you the confidence to do that?
Well, we don't feel that it's bricks and mortar that is, suffering as much as an experiential value that perhaps wasn't adequate or strategically relevant enough to the customer that it was servicing. And so we've seen that in the US, as you were saying. We've seen, quite sizable department stores, go wrong, go awry in terms of, how they were navigating those complexities. And the reality is that with Level Shoes, we feel that we've figured it out. We feel that we've figured it out because the experience is seamless, because, the curation is good, because the sense of community is there. And so for us, what we're offering is very different than what other department stores or category killers, if you want, have been offering in the US. And unfortunately, they've been relevant in the 80s and the 90s, but perhaps are less relevant to the customer today. And so today for us, it's about figuring out what is our value in this chain, and managing to build that value flawlessly within the different touch points that we have with the customer, whether online or offline. And so as we were mentioning, we've launched our e-com for Level Shoes in the US last year.
Yeah, that's already
and it's been going super well.
Yeah.
And we're extremely happy about that. And now we're investing in a 3,600 square meter store, which is quite sizable at this stage, in Bal Harbour in 2027, which is, quite ambitious, but it serves its purpose, which is, an experience that is different, a curation that's going to be different between some of the big brands that we all know, some of the brands that we try to, innovate with and tinker with a little bit. And then obviously creating that sense of community in the same way that we've created it in the UAE, with our 10,000.
You've been very focused on the category itself and not straying away from what the core is. I'm conscious that we're running out of time. My last question for you. We have an audience of global retail leaders here with us today who are thinking about their own strategies. As you look towards the next 12 to 18 months, where should they be paying attention? And what are maybe some things that people are underestimating that you think they should be thinking about?
Well, I think that we've covered a lot of it, but I think that we're all being touched by a geopolitical context that is quite difficult to navigate. But that brings about opportunities as well. And I think this region is definitely a region that has a lot of opportunities, and we're seeing that other regions, like Latin America, where we're also based, brings about its own set of opportunities, despite what is happening right now. And I think that for us, it's been about how we can navigate those complexities and continue offering an experience that is, at the level that our customer is willing to pay for. Because at the end of the day, we've seen that there are risks that consumers are feeling that they're, perhaps getting prices increased without the value behind it. And for us, it's about investing into the fantastic products that we have to offer, into fantastic quality, into fantastic experiences, and into making sure that those experiences, really manage to bring about the value that we charge.
Yeah, so stay focused on that, even with the headwinds, and also a bit agile. Thank you, Michael.
Thank you, Ritu.
Always a pleasure. Thank you.